for What's going on, college football fans? Welcome back to the First and Long College Football Show. I'm your co-host, Marcus, joined by my co-host, as always, Mr. Mason there. We have got conference championship predictions coming at you. We're ready to talk a little more in depth about what we've discovered this week and things that we kind of looked back on throughout the season for some of the best teams in the land that have made it to their conference championship week. And of course, a hot button issue in college football at the moment. We've got the college football playoff penultimate rankings. That's right. We are going to react to what the college football playoff committee has put out there to the public tonight. Let's get into it here on the other side on the First and Long College Football Show. You guys go ahead and do me a favor real quick before we get started today and hit the thumbs up button, please. It helps out the channel so much. It helps get the good word of the First and Long College Football Show out there. You guys have been so awesome at doing that and supporting us in that manner, and we certainly do appreciate it. It's been an outstanding 2024 season. But, guys, we're in a new age of college football. We are in the 12-team playoff age of college football. We've still got 6-7 weeks of football to talk about here, guys. And in the midst of all that, we are going to have coaching changes. We're going to have transfer portal kicking off. I've already seen a couple of news stories already of players that are on the move, and that is inevitable. It was just a absolute storm of craziness last year, and I think it's going to be just as crazy this year. We're going to see a lot of talent moving around the country. We've got recruiting that we're going to talk some about. We're not a recruiting show, but we certainly do pay attention because it is as important as ever. So it's really important that if you haven't hit that subscribe button, that you go ahead and do that. Hit the notification bell, but hit that like button for us, and that way we'll trend in your little story there on YouTube. We would certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Mason, how you doing, buddy? We got college football playoff rankings to discuss. And I feel like maybe we've got our minds made up on the conference championships at this point. How you doing tonight?
Yeah, doing good, man. Doing good. We've had a couple of sleeps since our early preview. Just kind of shooting off the cuff on Sunday nights when we just watched the Saturday night games, Friday night games, I guess, this past week as well. And so we kind of came off the cuff for our early preview. Now we've done a little bit more research. We've gone back and watched some games, done some digging, looked up some more stats and whatnot. And so now I feel like we have all the information we need to give a good prediction on what these games are going to look like. I think if I've learned anything this season about college football, it's that we never really know. Like, this season has been wacky as all get out. However, I think that we can study some trends and get a general idea of how each team could potentially win the game, why they would win the game, and then ultimately arrive at our predictions at the end of each segment. But ready to break it down with you, Mark. Man, I'm fired up. We got conference championships this weekend, y'all. And I'm super excited. It is nut cutting time, and we just saw the college football playoff rankings. So
some nuts have been cut, as it appears.
It appears that way.
Yeah. Sorry, South Carolina.
So we get an idea of where the committee's head is at, and I'm excited to get into that with you, Mark. There was not a video that had more debate than our video on the college football playoff predictions that we did on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Now we see where the committee's head is at. We weren't that far off, really. and I'm excited to see what you've got, what your thoughts are on it, Mark, and then all of our viewers watching. What are your thoughts? Who is snubbed here? Like, obviously, it feels like South Carolina and Ole Miss. We saw Lane Kiffin, making his case online. Who do y'all think should have
That's
been in?
that's where Lane Kiffin always makes his case, right? It's online.
Yeah.
Quite the social media presence that man is. His social media presence, it doesn't precede him, necessarily like that. That is him. Um, he is that figure. It's pretty interesting. Look, Ole Miss is not going to college football playoff. South Carolina is not going to college football playoff, and it doesn't give me any pleasure to necessarily say that about South Carolina. Ole Miss, I'm indifferent. I mean, I'm not against Ole Miss making the college football playoff necessarily, well, in this situation, I am, but personally, I have no vendetta against them or anything like that. And South Carolina's been a team that I've rooted for a ton this season, so it doesn't give me any pleasure to say that. But Alabama's feeling good about where they're at right now. There's no doubt about that. We're going to pull up the bracket. Mason, could you pull that up? If you could do that. Look, Alabama's the team feeling the best now because they don't have a game to play this weekend. And that's not going to dictate whether or not they make the college football playoff. But one probably, I guess, feeling in their gut that they don't like this weekend and they're going to have to deal with is Alabama's going to have to root for SMU in that ACC championship game because for obvious reasons. Clemson's not making the college football playoff unless they win the ACC championship this weekend. And I don't see the college football playoff kicking SMU all the way out of the top 12 if they don't win the ACC championship. So with that being said, Alabama needs SMU to take care of business. They're in Charlotte, of course. And that is going to be the make or break for the Crimson Tide being able to make the college football playoff as a first round road team. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like I wasn't crazy surprised about any of this stuff. I mean, nothing surprised me just unbelievably. Now let's see. What were your thoughts, Mason? And let me pull up this list over here that I had. But obviously there was a lot of talk in the video that we did earlier this week about who was going to be able to play a home playoff game. So what do you think that slate's looking like? I think that's an area that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of Indiana folks were hoping that they were going to be able to slide into that, that home playoff, being able to host that home game. And it doesn't look like that's going to be able to be the case.
Yeah, I would be surprised, I guess. I don't see Indiana being able to host there. I know there were a lot of Tennessee fans, which we have a ton of Tennessee fans on this channel, and a lot of them were saying, making the case for them in the 8 spot over Ohio State. I get it, but the committee sees Ohio State, because they were ranked so high. I think having that one loss against a rival Michigan, as bad as Michigan is right now, they give Ohio State the nod over Tennessee. If you're a Tennessee fan, you just gotta hope that you can go up there and take care of business, right? It would be really cool to see. Did you have something, Mark?
Well, I was just gonna say this what we have on the screen. That's not the college football playoff rankings right now, right? Because
it's not the rankings. This is the bracket that was released, though. So, like, the rankings have Boise State at 10.
Right. I just wanted to take a look at that because the teams that aren't playing this weekend, I feel like that list kind of tells us something about what the committee is thinking about those teams.
Right.
And that was kind of something that I was kind of alluding to with the whole home. Who's going to slide where after possibly losing a conference championship or something like that. So I just wanted to pull it up in that regard real quick. But I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I just I was sitting there comparing the two
this up
lists
real quick. This is I hope y'all can see that. Hold on. Let me scroll in a little bit more on the actual CFP rankings because this is showing
I,
AP versus.
I've got one I can pull up right here.
Okay.
I should be able to. Let's see here, guys. Sorry about that, fellas. I'm just trying to get this worked out here technically. Is that up there now? I believe it is.
That's it right there. Can
Let's
you
just
zoom
go.
in a little bit?
Yeah.
Just kind of get rid of those borders, and then we'll just start over from here, and I'll edit this part out.
Okay. All right. So we've got our new college football playoff rankings headed into college for conference championship week, rather. And as we can see, let's just start from the top of the list here, and we'll make our way down. Oregon, we've got at number 1 here. At no surprise at all. They've been number 1 in everybody's rankings, really, pretty much everybody in the country since they beat Ohio State there at home. Oregon has been the most consistent team in the country. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We look. They're Oregon fans feel slighted this year, and I think I know what it is. It's not anything that's been on the field. There's been so much talk this year about I don't know if there's an elite team in college football and blah blah blah. And I think Oregon fans have taken a little bit of umbrage with that. That type of talk. Because Oregon has been an elite team in college football this season, and there's no doubt about that. They're 12-0. They're the only team that is 12-0. So you got to give Oregon their flowers in that manner. But at the same time, you know, uh, Oregon fans have kind of taken offense anytime you even been devil's advocate as far as talking about one of their opponents in one of their games or something like that. We're going to talk about the Big Ten championship game today, and we're going to talk keys to victory for Penn State because there is a chance that Penn State can win that football game. And whether anybody likes it or not, I mean, there is a chance that they can win that game. Do I think Oregon's going to win? Yeah, I do. But we're going to discuss it further, and I'm going to do my best to explain why I think that and the outcome of that football game. So y'all stay tuned for that here shortly. Texas at number 2, no surprise there. Penn State number 3. This situation is going to work itself out. I don't think Penn State is the 3rd best team in the country, Mason. I mean, I have a hard time believing that. But Penn State's 11-1, and you can't argue with that. They've lost one game where they struggled to score against one of the best defenses in the country, if not the best defense in the country. So, you know what? Penn State's all they've done is just beat who's in front of them, and that's all that you can do. So, congratulations to Penn State. This situation with Oregon and Penn State is about to work itself out, and the loser of that game is not going to fall that far, though. So we'll keep that in mind. Notre Dame slides up to number 4. So I know there's going to be a lot of talk about this. I know a bunch of people are going to hate this, right? Notre Dame sliding up into number 4 here. And here's the deal. I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't, well, I mean, I guess they got to go somewhere with the conference champions, but I don't think they're going far. They're going to be right there towards the top, and they don't have a game to play this weekend. So you're going to see a conference champion kind of kick them out of the 4 spot, but they're not going to go far. They got to probably just go to 5, I would imagine. So Notre Dame is in really, really good shape, and that number 5 spot is a really good spot in the bracket as well. So that sets up really, really nicely for Notre Dame. You got Georgia at number 5, Ohio State number 6, Tennessee number 7, and SMU 8, Indiana 9. So congratulations to Tennessee. I think this is obviously a really big deal because that the 5, 6, and 7 was it 5, 6, 7, 8 are going to be hosting playoff games, right? And this is still going to move around a little bit, guys. Don't get me wrong. I mean, SMU obviously has got a chance to slide up into that top 4, and either them or Clemson will, obviously, right? So there's still some moving around that's got to go on here. And if Georgia wins, don't you figure if Georgia wins the conference championship, they'll slide up into the number 2 spot probably, I would imagine, Mason. I mean, I'm thinking the SEC champion, you've got Texas 2, Georgia 5. I think the champion obviously is going to be in the 2 spot, and the loser's probably going to be in like the 6 spot, I'm thinking. I don't think you're going too terribly far. So I'm thinking the loser of the SEC championship game. I guess it kind of depends on how things go. I mean, if Florida beats, or excuse me, if Texas beats Georgia 100-0, maybe Georgia slides to like 9 or something. But I don't see that happening this weekend with a 2.5 point spread. Nobody's really predicting that at this point. So
Yeah.
I think the loser of the SEC championship game is safe to say they'll probably have a home playoff game there. We got Indiana 9, Boise State 10, Alabama 11, and Miami at 12. Um, so there we go. And then you see, guys, we got Arizona State and Iowa State at 15 and 16. And so you know what that means. That whoever wins that Big 12 championship is going to be coming into that 12 spot. So as I said earlier, we kind of messed up our video, so it might be edited out. So I'll say it again. Alabama and Miami, and really Alabama. I mean, obviously the committee's telling us that they like Alabama over these at-large teams here, this little block of 11 through 14. They like Alabama. Alabama's got to root for SMU to take care of Clemson because Clemson doesn't have a chance to make the college football playoff, obviously, with 4 losses without winning the ACC championship. So all eyes will be on Charlotte for many different reasons. Obviously, lots of Clemson and SMU fans will be waiting in anticipation for the conclusion of that game, and other fan bases all around the country. What do you think about this this top 12 or 14, I guess you could say? Really, you got to kind of look at the top 16 or 17, Mason, because there's, I guess, opportunities for each of these teams in some way, shape, form, or another.
Yeah, and I think when you look at, 11, 12, 13, 14, if you could scroll down just a little bit there, Mark, but you look at that group and you got Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Those were the 4 programs that there was so much debate about when we did our show. You see it all over, online, and you could make a case for all 4 of those teams, right? Miami's the only group out of that bunch with 10 wins. Alabama has done the best against ranked opponents out of those 4. Alabama has the head-to-head against South Carolina. Mississippi has the head-to-head against South Carolina. So to me, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I think that the committee just kind of took the easy way out. And I don't know that I necessarily blame them, but it's easy to say Alabama has the head-to-head against South Carolina, so does Ole Miss. So South Carolina, therefore, cannot be ahead of those 2, even though they got slighted really in the LSU game, and there was some bad officiating that anybody could see that cost them that football game. And even though they look by the eye test like the best team out of those 4 right now, Miami, all you have to do at that point is look at really. I mean, I guess Ole Miss still has a case, but the issue with Ole Miss is that their schedule was so easy that it made it easier for Alabama to get in over Ole Miss again. And this is something that Mr. Ward kind of hinted at afterwards or elaborated on afterwards. But Alabama has more current top 25 wins than Ole Miss, than South Carolina, than in particular Miami, and that's kind of why they got the nod there. But one of the things that I'm kind of interested in, and you mentioned Notre Dame kind of being stuck at 4, kind of no matter what happens. I'm interested to know if Georgia were to beat Texas, do you think that the committee would drop Texas below 4? When Georgia would then be the number 2 team, right? Presumably, and Texas's only losses were both to Georgia, who's the number 2 team. And you're already telling me that they're ahead of Notre Dame. So I think if Georgia were to beat Texas, I think that Texas drops to 3, which would give them the 5 spot in the actual college football playoff bracket. And you could potentially make the same case for Penn State. Again, it's going back to, do you penalize these teams for playing in these conference championship games? Because right now, Penn State and Texas are ahead of Notre Dame. Obviously, if Texas handles business, takes care of Georgia, Georgia's not getting getting ahead of Notre Dame in this case.
Yeah.
But I mean, either Oregon or Penn State are going to have to lose that game. Does the committee push them behind Notre Dame at that point? I think that's a reasonable question, and I don't know that we can necessarily just pencil them into the 5 spot.
Well, and the more we talk about it, I mean, we're all kind of reacting to this live on the spot here. So, I mean, humor me for a minute. Maybe the penalty for Georgia losing to Texas is stiffer than the penalty for Texas losing to Georgia in this situation, and maybe that applies to the Oregon and Penn State game as well. I mean, because if Penn State loses this game, yeah, they've got 2 great losses, but I feel like Penn State needs this win, obviously, to put on their resume to deserve to be that top 4, top 5-ish team. And if they lose this game, maybe they drop farther than what Oregon would drop if they were to lose this game, considering Oregon is undefeated at this point and essentially has a loss or 2 to kind of give. That's interesting. It still leaves kind of a murky picture as far as who's playing who in the first round here, because we depending on who wins those games. I mean, we think Oregon's going to beat Penn State. I mean, that's kind of where we're at on that as a group, and we're going to discuss it in depth. And I'm not saying Penn State doesn't have a chance to win that game, so don't get me wrong there, guys. But I feel the same way about the SEC championship. I really don't know who's going to win that football game. I don't know. Georgia beat Texas the first go round, but now all of a sudden they're going to play in a neutral site, and everybody's in love with Texas in this game. So it's going to be an interesting football game. SMU and Clemson, there is certainly a path for both teams to win that game. Boise State, UNLV, there is a path for both teams to win that game. So Big 12, Arizona State, Iowa State, I might feel the best about Arizona State in their conference championship matchup versus, what I feel like about the rest of these contenders. It's just as far as my confidence level is what I mean. So I don't know. I feel the most confident in the fact that Arizona State and Oregon are going to win their conference championships. The rest of them, I really don't know. I'm giving my best educated, guess on these things. We're going to do predictions here shortly. So we'll see, but Indiana is a team. I don't see them moving a whole heck of a lot. I think that's kind of where they're going to be. Tennessee, it kind of tells you where the committee feels with Ohio State and Tennessee there. In this projection, Tennessee going on the road to Columbus, that is a hell of a matchup, Mason.
Yeah.
I don't know what the history is there between Ohio State and Tennessee. Y'all let us know in the comment section. I don't remember really any history between those two. Maybe they ran into each other some in the late 90s or something. Whenever Tennessee was kind of on their high horse back in the day. But that's going to be a hell of a matchup. And really any of these scenarios I'm super excited about. Notre Dame, Alabama, I mean, that's 2 blue bloods if I've ever seen it, right? And a national championship rematch from not that long ago. So there's a lot here. Indiana possibly going on the road to Georgia if Georgia was to lose that SEC championship. Obviously, I would just be in love with the aspect of Georgia being able to host a college football playoff game in Athens. I'd like to pretend that I would do my best to get a ticket to that, but I don't. Lord knows those things would probably be $700 a piece to get in that place. But with that being said, I am really excited about all these matchups, guys. And do yourself a favor too. Go look at all the dates for all these playoff games, the first round, the quarterfinals, the semifinals. Look at the dates and the days of the week that those are going on. Me and Mason kind of had I didn't realize that some of these are happening like during the week. So in between each round of the playoffs, you're going to basically have like 10 days in between games. And so that sets it up to where you've got some games on odd days of the week that we're not used to having in college football. That's going to be really interesting as well. New Year's Eve and New Year's Day has always kind of been a thing. but I think that falls on like a Wednesday, Thursday. So we've got Monday national championship. We've got Wednesday, Thursday games. This weekend we've got Friday and Saturday like normal. But this will be the last weekend that's like normal of the college football season. So we still got one more week to figure all this stuff out and figure out how it's going to shake out. It's going to be really, really interesting. The penultimate rankings here for the 2024 college football playoff 12 team edition. Anything else on this, Mason, before we get into conference championship predictions?
Well, I will say that given what the committee is doing in putting Alabama at the number 11 spot, and I just mentioned how I thought that this was kind of the easy way out. I think if we extrapolate here a little bit, and if Clemson were to beat SMU, I think that the committee would take the easy way out and keep SMU at 11 based off of that pretense. The thing that I struggle with SMU is that if they lose to Clemson, they will be 0-1 against current top 25 teams. Clemson is the only team on their schedule that is in the top 25 outside of BYU. So I guess they would be 0-2 against top 25 teams. And I don't know if the committee would keep them in that case, because they just made the argument for Alabama, who has a good top 25 schedule or record, I should say. So that to me is kind of the biggest question. I don't know. I don't know which is an easier judgment to make in that case, but make no doubt about it. If Clemson beats SMU, it's going to throw a huge wrench in everything. It is the biggest game, I think, of the weekend realistically, because win or lose in the ACC or in the SEC championship game, win or lose in the Big Ten championship game, both of those teams are in. I think without a doubt. The Big 12, it's a win. It's a win, and you're in. And then the ACC, it's a win and you're in if you're Clemson. If you lose and you're SMU, you're still kind of a bubble team. And what side of the bubble are you going to be in? So I'm really excited for that, and kind of fired up for these conference championship games, obviously, and what the effect of those games is going to be when it comes down to this bracket.
I think this is an interesting point right here that PSU Jim makes. He says how funny how it works. The SEC and Big Ten champ games are the better games to watch, but the most important will be the ACC game. That is super true, man. That ACC championship game. Who would have thought a 3-loss Clemson? Is that right? Are they 3 or 4 losses? Who would think that they would be, having so much impact on the college football playoff? But that's how that's how this works. All these teams trying to get in here at crunch time. These conference championship games still mean something. In some cases, it means less for the SEC, I feel like, in the Big Ten, but that's okay.
One more point real quick. The way that this sets up, I don't like. If this were how the playoffs were played going, if we were walking into the playoffs, this was your bracket, right? You've got Georgia. If they beat Indiana, you've got Georgia playing Texas for the third time this season in the quarterfinals. I know you can't just strategically place these teams in certain places so that you're not seeing these matchups for a second or third time. But I feel like if I'm a fan of college football, I don't really want to see that 3 weeks after one another, right? And that's kind of what we could potentially see here. I would like to see Georgia or whoever loses that SEC championship game potentially in like the 5 spot, and then maybe you kick Penn State down or Oregon down to the 6 spot, or vice versa, and kind of spread out the conferences in a sense, because then you're also having Ohio State potentially, if they were to beat Tennessee, playing Oregon in the quarterfinal. And to me, that should be a semifinal or a a national championship type of game. So, again, I'm not faulting the committee for that, but hopefully, as college football fans, we get better matchups than this when it's all said and done.
Hey, Bentley CC in the comment section says, so if Georgia loses SEC championship game, they would drop from number 7. No, Bentley, the bracket that we just had on there is a projection of what we think is going to happen from here. Georgia right now
no, the bracket that was just showed is a ranking is based off of the current rankings. That is how it would play out based off of college football.
Well, Georgia's number 5
ranking.
in the rankings right now, not number 7.
Right, but they would be behind Penn State, and they would be behind Notre Dame, so they would drop to 7 since all the conference champions would take up 1 through 4.
Right. I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they wouldn't throw Penn State behind Georgia. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know.
But see, they're not projecting. They're just saying based off of these rankings, we're going to say that Oregon beats Penn State, Texas beats Georgia, and then kind of SMU beats Clemson. Boise State beats UNLV because they're ranked higher. So everything else just kind of falls in suit based off of the ranking. But it will get jumbled up. Rest assured, because some of these teams are going to lose, and I mean, the way this season's going, there's going to be some upsets too. So
sure. I mean, here's my thing. I mean, who's to say that Georgia Texas doesn't play a game that ends up 35-34 in double overtime or whatever, and they don't move Georgia out of the 5 spot. You know what I mean? And they drop Penn State below. Say Penn State gets creamed by Oregon, and then they drop Penn State below Georgia. That was kind of my point. Bentley was saying, if they lose the game, then they would drop from 7 to farther down. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. That I don't know that Georgia necessarily would go to number 9 or whatever. We don't know. We got to see what happens in this thing. I mean, I don't know. Cause I mean, somebody could get just murdered in one of these games, and change somebody's kind of thought process on one of these teams. Like Penn State they need this win. They need this win. Otherwise their resume doesn't look nearly as good. So I don't know. We'll kind of see how things work out. This is our first time going through this as a group together. And it's a little confusing. It's a little confusing. Moral of the story is Alabama needs SMU to take care of Clemson. Otherwise, if Clemson takes care of business against SMU, Alabama, I think, is out. So interesting stuff. Y'all let us know in the comment section what else you're thinking. I'm trying to read through some of these. PSU Jim says, I think that if the losers in the playoff games keep it close, they probably won't really get penalized. That's what I mean. That's what I think too. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't. If Penn State and Oregon, if Penn State loses by 7, I think they stay ahead of Georgia if Georgia loses to Texas. You know what I'm saying? And there's not like a big margin of victory there. So I think there is still a little bit of like the whole, like a bad loss, good win, or not. There's not like a bad win right now, but there's such thing as good losses and bad losses still at this stage in the game, I think. At least a little bit. Rankings do not equate to the bracket. There are slots for conference winners. Exactly, Derby. The top 4, the 4 highest ranked conference champions will be in the top 4 spots. Okay. Yeah. So, you are correct. And that's why Clemson could be in the playoff, because Clemson could be in that, whatever. They could take up one of those spots, essentially. And Clemson would take up the 4 spot because currently they're ranked higher in the rankings than Arizona State and Iowa State right now. So
well, but they would not be they're not ahead of Boise State. So Boise State would have the 4 spot still.
So
and right. Well, and also Arizona State and Iowa State are just ahead of Clemson in the rankings. So theoretically, if Clemson were to win, they would still be they would
Oh,
get
I was
the
thinking Clemson was in
12
front of them.
spot maybe.
So they're in front of Clemson. So that'll be interesting.
UNLV would have to beat Boise in that scenario.
Right.
For
Right.
Clemson to get the 4 spot.
Okay. Well, yeah, we still got some scrambling going on, guys. Arizona State, Clemson is 15. Clemson is 17. Yeah, that I was mixed up there. I'm sorry about that. That was my bad. Boise State would move to number 3. Arizona State would move to, well, I don't know about that because Clemson. Yeah, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Clemson would play Penn State. I don't know about that part. This shit's got me so damn confused. It ain't even funny now.
Yep.
It's going to be. We got to see what happens in these games. Bentley says thanks. Regardless, this is amazing. Think of all the cool drama we could have had forever ago if this whole 12 scheme had been in play. I know. I agree. Believe me, brother, as a Georgia fan who was on the cusp of multiple national championships and even a couple of years where arguably should have played for a national championship, I can't help but wonder what could have been, honestly. But then again, Georgia would still probably have Mark Richt as their head coach because he would have been making the 12-team playoff all the time. And we would have never had Kirby Smart. So, revisionist history for sure. Ghostasm, thanks for watching, Ghost. I appreciate it. In which case, if Clemson jumps Arizona State, we beat Clemson at Clemson, and they could end up with a first-round bye. You must be a Georgia fan. Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like Clemson's going to get the first-round bye from what we just discussed, but they're not going to be getting that. PSU Jim, if the NCAA was just looking to start arguments and increase interest, they've done a hell of a job, but it's still tough to figure it out. I know it, man. It is very tough to figure it out. It's just you can't figure it out. We've got a 1,000-piece puzzle here, and somebody grabbed 20 pieces. We've got 90-something% of this figured out, but these last 12, we don't know. We can't figure out what order to put them in. We can just about figure out what 12 it is. We just can't figure out the order. That's the thing. We can just about figure out the 12. We know we got 10 of them figured out pretty much. Oh, Gamecocks all day. I got you. Yeah. You're right. I know it, man. I hate that for the Gamecocks fans. I really do. I feel so bad for South Carolina. Just right on the doorstep. It was such an amazing season. Congratulations. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to as a South Carolina fan. I can't wait to see what South Carolina does in the transfer portal this offseason, right? That's going to be it's just going to be paramount to their success this next year. But you've got a landmark set up now. You've got Lenora Sellers. You've got you got some things working. And I haven't been able to say that about South Carolina in a while. So I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see it. Ghost has him. Anywho, appreciate the content. Sorry for spamming. Ghost has him. You may comment as much as you like because you are clearly not a dumbass. So more than happy to read your comments, and you're more than welcome to set me straight as well because this whole thing's got my head in a knot. I mean, I like I said, I know about 10 of the 12 teams for sure that are going, but I can't figure out for the life of me where everybody's at, except for Big Ten champion number 1, SEC champion number 2. The rest of it, I don't know. I really don't. I feel like an idiot. Brian Browning, what's up, Brian? Appreciate you watching, brother. How about them Boise State Broncos? How about them Boise State Broncos, man? I'm happy for you guys. I hope you can get through this last hurdle here. And we're actually going to talk about that. So let's kind of transition over into some of our conference championship games. This all kind of ties in together. We can kind of discuss what we think are going to happen and give you guys our predictions on this stuff. So let's jump into this thing, and I'm going to get some stuff pulled up here so that I know I got some notes here that I needed to look at. We'll show. Um, Mason, you just want to let's knock out this Mountain West one real quick. Let's just knock that one out, and then we'll go Big Ten, SEC, and then ACC, Big 12 at the end. That sound good?
Cool. Let's do it.
All right. Let me make sure I got all my stuff pulled up. Hey guys, while I'm pulling this up, do me a favor and hit the like button real quick. It really helps us out a ton. Gets the word out, and my phone has been blowing up with comments on all these videos and stuff. So you guys obviously have done a really good job of that. Y'all blow my phone up again. That'd be great. I appreciate it. I really do. All right. Let's jump into this thing. It's the Mountain West Championship. You got the UNLV Rebels going to go on the road, and that's right, guys. This is not a neutral site game. This is on the road at Boise State. It's going to be on the blue turf. This one's going down on Friday, 8 p.m., Albertson Stadium, as I said. This is going to be a rematch of what we've already seen. Last I saw on this one, Boise State was favored by 4. The over-under is a high 59.5, by far the highest of the conference championships and all the totals that we've looked at. This obviously is for a bid into the college football playoff. UNLV was kind of a beneficiary last week of Tulane stumbling. Tulane was in kind of, I guess you could say, in line behind Boise State to receive that college football playoff bid, but they lost to Memphis. And so, therefore, now UNLV has a chance to play for their chance to go to the college football playoff. Really big deal. Boise State, 11-1, the lone loss this year, obviously coming to Oregon early in the season. I believe it was second or third game of the season. Let's look at some of the stats. Everybody thinks of Boise State, and they think of Gentry, right? They think 2,000 something yards this year. Heisman hopeful. He's going to be in the Heisman ceremony for sure, and absolutely deserves to be. Everybody thinks that this Boise State team, that's all that they're about, and they hand the ball off to Genty, and I said Gentry, and I'm sorry about that. I meant Genty. Thank you, Uncle Lou, for messing me up. Dude is in my head. He mispronounces it every time he says it, and so now I mispronounce it every time I say it, and I know the dude's name. But anyway, with that being said, I've seen this Boise State team this season, Mason. I've seen them win different ways, and it's been impressive. Now, it's been impressive in the fact that they've been able to be so versatile. Every win wasn't impressive. Every win wasn't just stellar, amazing. But as I said, Boise State and particularly this offense has figured out a way to get it done in different scenarios. We've seen Genty obviously have a bunch of really good games, setting all kinds of records for consecutive games with X amount of yards, blah, blah, blah. But he has had a couple of games where he played like a normal human, and Boise State was able to figure out ways to win this. Looking at the matchup predictor here on ESPN, I see that Boise State's got a 68.7% chance to win. I don't bet on these things or anything like that, but I just try to pass you the information and let you do with it what you will. Quarterback Madsen for Boise State has had a nice year. Got to watch him a pretty good bit, and I've been pretty impressed with his ability to control the football game. 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's got just over 2,500 yards for the season. Not anything that just like blows your socks off necessarily, but that's what you got Genty for, right? So this guy's been asked to manage this offense, and he's done a good job of doing that. We all remember the drama that went on with UNLV and their quarterback kind of stepping out of the way with his situation. I think it was NIL related or whatnot. You see the backup step up Williams in his spot. And he's been a breath of fresh air. 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. We all remember Boise State beating UNLV earlier this season. Here's kind of my thing with this game. It is going to be bitter cold at this game. This is one of the few conference championship games that we're going to talk about today that it's not in a dome. It's not inside. This is going to be in Idaho in December. So it is going to be exactly what you would think it would be. It's going to be cold. It's going to be blustery, and it's more than likely going to be windy as well. I've got some of the stats on the screen here. This is UNLV's offense versus Boise State's defense, and then we'll kind of switch it up here in a second. Boise State defense has not been great against the pass, but UNLV has been more of a running football team, and that's been more of the strength defensively for Boise State. So really, if you kind of look at UNLV's offense, their strengths kind of play into the strengths of the Boise State Broncos and their defense in this situation. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, right? Boise hasn't been just a shut you down type defense this season, I wouldn't say. Averaging giving up 5.65 yards per play. That's not necessarily just amazing, but it's not terrible either. They've been fairly well rounded as a football team in general, but I think UNLV is going to have to figure out a way to get the passing game going here and hit this team over the top. I believe. Let's kind of flip the script here. We'll look at the UNLV defense. They've been pretty decent at stopping the run, but they don't play Ashton Genty every week either. So it's a whole nother thing. It's just a whole nother thing whenever you've got that guy in the backfield. I believe Boise State is going to be able to run the football in this game, and I think they're going to be able to eat up some clock that way. They're really good at just sustaining drives. Dirk Cutter has done a good job with this offense. Like I said, they're versatile, so they got many different ways that they can beat you, but good at sustaining drives, about almost 70 plays per game. That's really good. 6.91 yards per play. That's outstanding. So what are your thoughts on this game, Mason? I'll just kind of try to dress up what each of these teams look like and some of their characteristics here. The stakes couldn't be higher. I don't know that the stakes have ever been higher for a Mountain West championship game. Ever. Right. This is a huge deal here. I think in the bitter cold that is going to take place in this game, I think whoever can run the football is going to be able to win this one, as we've talked about a ton for these conference championship games. Thomas for UNLV will be the guy tasked with doing that, and he's had a good season, but nothing like Mr. Superman Genty himself on the other side there, and I believe that gives Boise a upper hand in this game.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think personnel-wise, as far as the players go on the field, I think Boise State has the upper hand. But when I look at the coaching staff, I love UNLV. I like Barry Odom leading this group. As the head coach, I like Dirk Cutter as the offensive coordinator. I think that there is a slight advantage to UNLV in this game when it comes to the coaching. When you mentioned that the team that rushes the ball better, these are two teams that are good at running the football. I went back and rewatched this matchup from earlier in the season to kind of prepare for this breakdown, and I think you can really take a lot from that. There wasn't a ton of just turnovers or weird plays or anything like that. You had the one turnover by UNLV on their side of the field, which gave Boise State a short field and an easy score there. But outside of that, I thought it was a pretty clean game, and I think there is a lot to glean from that game. And surprisingly, in that football game, UNLV actually outrushed Boise State. Now, a lot of that was coming from Haj Malik Willis, and we're not talking about a ton of rushing yards that they outgained them by. It was 188 to 185, but on just 36 attempts in comparison to Boise State's 40. So UNLV in the last game did rush the football better. Boise State did a little bit better job of passing the football. They were 30 points or 30 yards, had 30 yards more passing than UNLV. But really, what the game came down to was, and I'm going to sound like a genius for saying this, Mark, but the game came down to the line of scrimmage, right? And what I mean by that is when you look at the sack yardage that Boise State was able to get on the offensive line for UNLV, they got 6 sacks for 39 yards lost. On the flip side, UNLV wasn't able to get to the quarterback at all. 0 sacks, 0 yards lost. I don't have like a quarterback pressure percentage or anything like that for you guys, but we can deduce from there that the pressure that Boise State was getting on UNLV was much greater than the pressure that UNLV was getting on Boise State. And I think that is sort of the underlying advantage that Boise State has. I mean, everybody wants to look at Genty. Everybody wants to look at the running game, and really Madsen too. I think he's been stellar for the most part. He is a game operator and does exactly what is needed. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way. He's very efficient as a quarterback. But the defensive line for Boise State, I think, is going to once again win them this football game. I've got Boise State winning this one. I think it's going to be pretty close. The last game ended up 24-29, if I'm not mistaken, in that football game. And yeah, 24-29. So 53 points total. The over-under was 63.5. So the under hit by 10 points, pretty wide margin. You're seeing it swing back down now to the 59.5, I guess it was. And so I think it's going to be a similar game plan or similar outcome, really. And but I like Boise State in this one. I think that they're playing at home. Obviously, is going to be huge. Playing on the Smurf turf, hearing the crowds just screaming, Genty, Genty, Genty. It brings chills to me just thinking about it, Mark. And I love watching Boise State when they play at home and seeing the crowd just so into that, into every play. I mean, they're hanging on the edge of their seats for every single play. That's going to play a huge factor in this one. Unless UNLV can stop that crowd early, with a big explosive play, touchdown on each of their first 2 drives, and they're up 14-0. I think that could silence the crowd just a bit early in that game. But without some sort of lead like that, the crowd is going to play a factor against that offensive line, which struggled against Boise State in the first matchup. I think you're going to see something similar in this one, a lot of offsides and things like that. I've got Boise State by at least a touchdown here.
Yeah, I like Boise State here as well, Mason. I've heard several people kind of want to take the contrarian pick here in UNLV, but with this being at home and the weather being the way that it is, I mean, you've got guys coming from the desert going out to, going up to just terrible conditions as far as most humans are concerned, right? I'll be the first to tell you, it's like 68 degrees in here right now, and I have a jacket on. So I'm from the South. I won't.
You've got
pretend,
like a sub 20-degree jacket on right now. And
I do. Look at this thing is like
a
inside
down
of like
jacket.
it's like the inside of. You ever seen one of them Chick-fil-A bags where they keep the biscuits warm in the morning?
Yeah.
It's like the inside of that thing, man. All I'm missing is a plug to plug this thing in the wall.
And then the fact that
would.
you reference Chick-fil-A as opposed to like a pizza bag or something
I didn't
like
even
that,
think
that
about
just
that.
that just shows you're from Georgia even more.
Yeah, I would say so. Chick-fil-A's once a week thing for us over here. So, look, I like Boise State. I like the Broncos in this one. It's been a great season for UNLV. They've been a fun team to watch. They've went through adversity this season. I love the coach over there. I've been watching him since he was in the SEC. I thought he did some good things at Missouri, Mr. Odom. So I really, really like him as a coach, and I like what he's doing there at UNLV for sure. But give me Boise State to win the Mountain West in 2024. Congratulations to the Broncos. This secures a big spot for them in the college football playoff. Really, really big deal here. All right, guys, let's get that one off the screen here, and we'll keep it going. it was funny. I was reading a comment in here. Brian Browning was talking about Mason. You remember when Boise State
Yeah.
came? Yeah, I was at that game. I actually, I feel like, and I was a young man. I had went with my parents to that game, and they had the whole uh, college football experience there and everything in the Georgia World Congress Center, which is still standing, but the game was in the Georgia Dome, which has been blown up since then. It's not
Yeah.
even there anymore. That's where the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is, and that's where the SEC Championship game will be played. So, right in the same general vicinity where Georgia lost to Boise State, Georgia will be facing off against Texas, and they've done so many times since then as well. But just a little piece of college football news or history. I mean, Georgia wore the Nike combat uniforms that game. And it was one of the very few times that Georgia's ever gone away from their typical, silver breeches and red jerseys or white jerseys, and they went with these just like unbelievable. I thought they looked unbelievable. Most of the traditional Georgia fans complained about it, thought it was terrible. It was a bad thing to do. And I think that had more to do with the fact that we lost by a couple touchdowns that day. But those uniforms were sick.
Georgia fans kill me with the whole like you can't wear this jersey because we lost in it, and it's like, well, I do that. I don't wear shirts that Georgia loses to. After they lose to them, it's like, all right, burn the shirt. But like, I don't really see the team. Like, I want to see the black jerseys, more than anything, more often. I think it's good for recruiting. I think it's good for fandom. But Georgia fans are so superstitious. I think it's silly.
Brian in the comment section is arguing with Ghostasm there, and they've been just kind of talking. Ghostasm is a South Carolina fan and feels as though South Carolina feels slighted at this time, and I can get feeling that way a little bit. Now that's a whole nother discussion for another day, but a lot of the reason that South Carolina is not going to be in the playoffs, um, I think some of it has to do with the fact that we've got automatic bids and things like that. I was um, never a fan of that stuff. But Brian, on a totally different note, though, Brian is saying that Boise State could beat anybody any given game this year, and there is always a chance. Don't get me wrong, but here's the deal: the any given Saturday thing. I think that I know that it's true in college football. I get it, but it happens less in the playoffs. The any given Saturday mantra where a team can kind of sneak up on another team, or you don't realize what you're walking into their home stadium, that's kind of over. That's going to be over after this weekend. Boise State will play at home again. There's not going to be any more of that sneaking up on anybody. There's not going to be. I mean, I'm not saying Boise State's done that this year, but my point is you don't really catch anybody off guard necessarily in the playoffs or anything. You're going to get other teams' best game for the most part. Are there still blowouts? There are blowouts because there's mismatches, and there certainly are. But rarely do we see an underdog go into one of these playoff games and absolutely just blow out the favorite. I mean, it doesn't happen a whole heck of a lot. We saw TCU upset Michigan, a couple of years ago. That was like the biggest upset that in the playoff history, right? It's got to be. So my example is kind of like whenever we saw Alabama play Cincinnati, and I know maybe that's a bad example because Alabama's been a machine for a while, the dark force that is the Crimson Tide. But like a team like Alabama, I feel like you're not going to sneak up on them, in the playoff. Like they went and they were a throwing football team. They were a passing football team that year, and they handed the ball off like 50 something times and just beat the shit out of Cincinnati. Right.
Yeah. It didn't put anything on film for the next week.
Didn't put anything on film at all going into the next week. That's exactly right. And it was just like, okay, well, and I remember people saying, well, Cincinnati's got a chance, that you never know if they can run the ball and blah, blah, blah. Ooh, it was ugly. They got pushed around really bad. I'm not saying that's happening to Boise State. I'm not saying that, but it all has to do with what side of the bracket you end up on. There's going to be sides of the bracket that are easier than the others. That's inevitable. Inevitable. Hey, good morning, Gio. Good evening. Good morning, Gio. How about that? Good evening. Good morning. How you doing? Salutations, my friend. Um, those teams of Cincinnati and TCU and Liberty were overrated teams. Okay, well, TCU played for a national championship, dude. I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. We'll
Beats
see.
me.
We'll see. I'm not. I don't want to sit here and talk bad about Boise. I mean, they've done good things, but we all know the talent the displacement between Boise State and a team like a Georgia or a Texas or I don't have to sit here and explain that to you guys. I mean, look at where Boise State's recruited and look at where the other ones have recruited. Boise State is going to have to out scheme, outsmart, and outplay everybody to be able to muscle through these games. There's no doubt about it. And just as Ghost Asm said right there, no disrespect to Boise. I mean, no disrespect at all. But things are about to get a lot tougher for Boise State after this week, but they got to get through this week first. All right, let's keep it going, guys. Thank y'all so much for watching. I certainly do appreciate it. Let's go into the Big Ten here, and we'll take care of that one right quick. It's the Big Ten Championship going down at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's going down Saturday, 8 p.m. This will be our nightcap, and that's 8 p.m. Eastern, by the way. The Penn State Nittany Lions, of course, are facing off against the Oregon Ducks. This was not the matchup that everybody had penciled in here a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, Ohio State takes their fourth loss in a row to Michigan in a big surprise upset that allowed Penn State at 11-1. They had that lone loss to Ohio State at home there, and it gave them the nod to be able to go to Indy and face off with the Ducks here. We talked about this game some on Sunday and kind of had talked about we were trying to come up with ways in which we felt like Penn State would be able to compete and win this game. The spread is not one that's just out of this world. I mean, it's 3.5 for Oregon here. Over under is set at 49.5 in this game. One of the things I said Sunday that I really needed to go in and take a deeper look at, I had to kind of pull up some of the advanced stats. And what I'll do for you guys right now is I'm going to put I'll put some of the stats on the screen here as we go through this stuff. So you're more than welcome to kind of take a look at some of this stuff as we go through. I'll actually come back to that slide. These are the ones that I kind of wanted to reference. As you can see on the left there, that's going to be Penn State's offense versus Oregon's defense. And then on the right, that'll be Penn State's defense against Oregon's offense. So, and these are rankings, obviously, so you can kind of take a look at that at your pleasure. I mean, neither one of these teams has an outlier as far as, just something that is really just terrible, right? Oregon offensively, rush yards per game, they're 63rd in the country. That's kind of the biggest outlier on this page, right? So, and 63rd, I mean, that's middle of the pack. That's average. So, and not to mention, there was a point in the season where there was kind of a lull in that production for Oregon. I feel like the running game has kind of came on late in the season here. So there's not a ton of stats to dislike from either one of these teams. So therefore, I wanted to dig a little deeper. I wanted to look at how these teams responded to explosive plays. How do these teams on offense, how do they go about getting their explosive plays? I wanted to kind of look at some of that and of course, like turnovers and things. So I'll kind of go through some of those stats and read them off to you. Sacks allowed, both of these teams are really good. I don't think there's necessarily a liability here for either one of these offensive lines. Penn State, 7th in the country, have not allowed a lot of sacks. Oregon, 13th in the country. So both of them look really, really good in that aspect. Offensively, I looked at explosive rush plays, right? Rush plays of 10-plus yards. Offensively, Penn State's 25th in the country. They have 73 rush plays of 10-plus yards. That's the most productive side of their offense as far as hitting the explosive plays. And again, as I said, those explosive run plays are plays of 10+ yards. And Penn State's hit 73 of those bad boys. And Oregon, on the other hand, is 61st in the country and has hit 62 of them. So you can kind of see a little bit of difference there. Passing plays of 20+ yards, Penn State 35th. Passing plays of 20+ yards for Oregon, 40th. So I was a little bit surprised to see that Penn State on paper has been more explosive than Oregon has this season, and that's in the passing game, and that is in the rushing game as well. And that was something that did surprise me a bit. But as we've said this year, Penn State has generated a ton of yards. They just haven't necessarily turned those all into points, that in the big games, I guess I should say. And they haven't had a ton of big games, but Ohio State, namely, they didn't score an offensive touchdown. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about here. Defensively for both of these teams, both of them are really good at getting sacks, Mason. 27th in the country for Penn State in sacks, 6th in the country for Oregon. Both of them can get after the quarterback. That's one of the biggest matchups here. Which one of these defenses is going to be able to get pressure on the other's quarterback? Like I said, both offensive lines are good. What gives here? That's going to be a big point of contention in this football game and depicting who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser here. And then turnovers, Penn State, 55th in the country of turnovers caused with 17. 12 of those have been interceptions. So Penn State's been pretty good at picking off passes. And Oregon, 67th in the country, turnovers caused. That's 10 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries. So kind of middle of the pack for both teams as far as creating turnovers this year. There's just not a lot of chinks in this armor, Mason. I mean, both teams look good. It just one team looks elite in one category, and the other looks at least good or really good. The margins are very thin as far as statistically. Now let's go back and look at some of the teams that these teams have played here. Okay. And for Penn State, I think that's super important. West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, that's kind of an outlier. Illinois is a pretty good matchup. UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, obviously an outlier there. So you got Illinois, Ohio State, right? Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland. There's only like a couple of games there where you feel like that was a huge matchup. A really big game or a good win or a good loss. I mean, Penn State only lost to Ohio State by 7. So you got to be happy with how the defense played that day. The offense just couldn't do a darn thing. I don't know, Mason. What are your thoughts here? I kind of dressed out some of the things that I wanted to kind of dress out. I feel like this is going to be a close football game. There's a reason that Vegas has got it 3.5. And they're not just making that number up. They don't build these big buildings and casinos in the desert for free. They're making lots of money. I can't pick Penn State to cover this. I just can't. I've watched these teams this year. The statistics are telling me that this is going to be a close game. But is it going to be like a field goal close game? Or is it a touchdown? Because early in the week when we talked about this, I felt like Oregon should have been a touchdown favorite. So I was surprised whenever it was 3.5. What are your thoughts on this game going into it for the Big Ten championship?
Well, looking at a few players here, I've kind of highlighted a couple that I think are kind of catalysts for each program. For Oregon on the offensive side of the football, I think it's Tez Johnson, right? He comes back. The offense has another gear to it. I said last week that I think I took the under in Oregon's game last week, and I mentioned that the offense just seemed to be missing a gear. Well, that gear was Tez Johnson, right? And he comes back, and when you go in and you look at his production and how the offense scores with him in versus with him not in, it's pretty significant. So him being able to play in this football game, I think, is huge. You can just watch the offense without knowing any of the stats or looking them up. Just watch the offense and tell me that having 15 in there doesn't make a difference, right? Tez Johnson is an absolute playmaker. For Penn State on the offensive side, obviously that guy's Tyler Warren. He is an absolute dude. We questioned going into this offseason who is going to be the playmaker going into this season. And we really didn't have an answer until the USC game when Tyler Warren really emerged and planted himself in this offense. I mean, we knew that he would be a good tight end, but sometimes a good tight end is good for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year, and that's a solid performance by a tight end. Tyler Warren is so much more than that, and everybody knows it at this point, but he's got to be featured in this game plan, and I'm curious to see what Kotelnicki draws up, knowing that you've got Dan Lanning on the other side of the football with tons of dudes on the defensive front and just on the defense in general. He's going to be scheming up ways to get to keep Tyler Warren out of this game plan for Penn State. Does Penn State try to get cute and go away from Tyler Warren, essentially using him as a decoy? Or are they able to find ways to get him the football? And I think that the latter is obviously the path to success and the path to a win for Penn State. But I'm going to be really, really excited to see that sort of matchup. How does Oregon defend Tyler Warren, knowing that one dude could be the reason you lose this football game? On the defensive sides for Oregon, we'll start with Oregon. The catalyst for me is Mateo Uiagalelei. He leads the team with sacks, with 10.5 sacks, which is good for 7th in the country. I think some of his sacks have really kind of gone under the radar. I mean, we know what kind of player he is. We know he's good. He's a big guy. He's good against the run. And now he's put together the sacks. He's not just putting pressure on the quarterback. He's getting to the quarterback. And what's interesting about Drew Aller is that no quarterback is better under pressure. I'm not saying that, but Drew Aller is good in comparison to other quarterbacks when put under pressure, if that makes sense. How does he handle it in this game? Can he get? Can he complete? I would think 50% of his passes under pressure. That's a pretty good metric. So if he can hit that number or exceed that, I would say it's a successful day for him. But if going back to Mateo Uiagalelei and this Oregon defensive front, Jordan Burch should be playing in this game, by the way. I think that Oregon has kind of limited him, knowing that they've got potentially a 16 or 17 game season this year. I think he's going to be ready. We questioned his health status earlier in the season, and then he comes back and I forget which game it was, but he comes back into that game, and then he's like catching a fake punt and running it 50 yards down the field. The guy's healthy, right? I think he's on a bit of a pitch count, or has been. I think he's going to be a full go in this game, and that's huge for this Oregon defensive line that's going to be really tasked with stopping the run for Penn State, because it's been the running game for Penn State has been pretty good. By their standards, it's been pretty good. The difference for Penn State in the offense is that the passing game has now picked up, and they're getting more explosive in the passing game, featuring guys like Tyler Warren. So really like the defensive front for Oregon. Tuiotti's another guy who's up there. He's been creating pressure as well. How does Penn State block that front? I don't think that they can do it, and sustain it throughout the entire game, but in key situations and key passing downs, when the defensive line is pinning their ears back, can they give Drew Aller just a little bit of time to find those receivers downfield? And then obviously those receivers got to get open. But then on Penn State side on defense, to me it's Abdul Carter. I mean, the guy's been solid. 10 sacks on the season so far, which is good for 11th in the country. I actually like Dylan Gabriel when he's under pressure as well. He's a guy who can escape, doesn't have a particularly powerful arm necessarily, but is a guy who can create space with his legs, and then find a receiver downfield. I think you're going to see a lot of the intermediate stuff from Oregon, and also you're going to see a different Oregon offense than you've seen throughout most of the season. I think that they have been holding back, playing a little bit vanilla against an easier Big Ten schedule, I think than they maybe thought it would be going into the season. But I think that the Oregon offense has kept things a little bit vanilla, and then this is the game where they should be able to kind of pull out all the bags of tricks to some degree until they get up, or if they get up, and then win this football game in ways that they haven't had to do yet. But Abdul Carter up front, like you said, Bark, the pressure on the quarterback, I think, is going to be the deciding factor for who wins this football game. And to me, I like Oregon up front a little bit more. I think that they have a few more dudes. Danny Deni Sutton, he's come back now, and he's a game wrecker too. But how healthy is he? He's a guy who I kind of question a little bit more on the defensive line. Whereas I think that I guess on the flip side for Oregon, I think Jordan Burch is completely healthy. Danny Deni Sutton, I'm not exactly sure if he's 100% or not. But that being said, Mark, I'll let you start off. What's your prediction? Is there anything else that you want to add first of all, and then what's your prediction on this one?
Yeah, man. I like Oregon in this one. I can't look. Here's the deal. I can't bet for Penn State in this situation. They haven't converted in a big game in a long time, man. And I can't. I got to see it. I've got to see it happen. This whole Franklin era at Penn State has been a lot of moments of build up and build up and build up, and then disappointment in the big game. And they've been close, but no cigar. I can't pick Penn State here until I actually see it happen. Give me Oregon. They've been one of the most consistent teams in the country. There's no reason for me to not keep going with Oregon and ride that wagon. If Oregon is losing a game, it's going to be against one of the premier teams in the country this year. I don't think Penn State is necessarily that. It's been a good year for Penn State. 11-1 is an outstanding regular season and something to hang your hat on for sure. But I don't think the playmakers are there for Penn State in this game out wide. And I think Oregon has got the playmakers in spades here and have got a clear advantage as far as that goes. So barring some dumb decisions, we've seen analytics and coaches get in the way, right, of their own teams in some big games over the last couple of years. And Dan Lanning has not been excluded from that, Mason. So Dan Lanning is going to have to. There's no need to risk. There's no need to risk it, right? This is not a risk it to get the biscuit type scenario here. Oregon has got the upper hand. Play this game straight up. Play good special teams. Flip the field whenever you get an opportunity, and take your three whenever you get an opportunity. And I think Oregon is able to win this one, no problem.
Yeah, going back to the line of scrimmage here, because I do think that it's worth mentioning over and over again. Penn State and Tom Allen have been really good at drawing up pressure throughout the season, right? Oregon has gotten pressure without blitzing. And I think that that's the difference in these two different styles of defense. Oregon does it rushing 3 or 4. And, can they do that against Penn State's offensive line? To be determined. But my point is they've got dudes that whether they're really scheming up a pass rush and a blitz package or not, they can get to the quarterback. I think that that's the difference in this football game. I like it close, but not as close as the spread is showing here. I like Oregon by about 6 points. I think that they have to work for this one. I think it's lower scoring. I got the under here as well. I'm thinking that this one ends up around 45. And so I guess in that case, give me 20. I guess I would say 29 to 15, something like that. I'm not doing math that well right now, Mark, but I'm thinking, long story short, I'm thinking that Oregon's going to be able to win this one by about 6 to 10 points, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. I'm thinking probably 31-20, something like that. I think this one is going to be right there around that 50-point mark. We'll see. Y'all let me know in the comment section what you think. is going down in this one. And let me know if you think the over or the under is hitting in this one. I'm pretty interested in that. We'll have a betting show later this week, and we'll kind of talk about that. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. We're over here having a conversation in the comment section
Mark,
about
I'll be right back. I'm going to give you a second while you read some comments. Somebody, my dad's senses have gone off, and somebody touched the thermostat. So I'm about to go open up a can of whoop ass and bring the heat down in here, man. I'm getting hot.
Did your little
one second.
ribbon? You got a little ribbon on your vent so you can see when that cuts on, and
Yeah, I can hear it. Anyways, I'll be right back.
all right. We were just talking in the comment section about the whole. Why are we talking about the Pac-12? I don't even know. But Brian, look, you know your stuff. You're a college football fan through and through, and I know that to be, I know that to be true because I've had enough conversations with you on here to see that you definitely got sense. But I don't think that there's any kind of like propping up of the SEC or anything like that, brother. I mean, we know where the best teams we know where the best players in the country go every year. It's all documented. And recruiting rankings, they're not 100% accurate, but if you go look at recruiting rankings out of high school for kids, right? Like ratings of the kids, and you compare that to the NFL draft, it's pretty amazing how accurate they are with these ratings. Because I mean, it has a lot to do with like God-given attributes: height, speed, hand size, how strong your arm is, or how fast you can run, how high you can jump. I mean, all that stuff's a lot of it's God given. You can sharpen those abilities, but a lot of it's God given. And the best players in the country are going to the SEC and the Big Ten. And that's just like we know that we have that data, and it's been that way. The Pac-12 was never getting the best players, and that's why they were never going to be the best conference. This isn't a secret how to build a good team. Yeah, you can have a Kurt Cignetti type team. I'm not saying that that's not possible. Kurt Cignetti is a great coach, and a guy that can do more with less. And so there is such thing as doing more with less. You could argue that Boise State has done that this year, or they've done that in years past, and that's an awesome thing. But the best players in the country in large numbers have been and are going to SEC and Big Ten schools. And why do you think Nick Saban? I mean, you think Nick Saban could take, Clemson's team right now and go win a national championship with it? No, he couldn't.
Well, let me play Brian's advocate here for just a second. I think that this year, teams that are playing with lesser talent have a distinct advantage because they're not paying their guys $1 million a year to play for their program, right? So from a coaching standpoint, these guys are not these guys are coachable, right? And coaches have said here recently that the guys who are getting paid $1 million to play college football and or 500, 600,000 plus, they're not coachable. So when you take someone with enough talent that's also coachable and compare them to someone with more talent but that's not coachable, what does that mean in a game that involves 11 players on the field at once who need to be coached up to be in sync and play with some kind of synchronicity? I think that this year is one of those years where if you have that on your team right now, it can pay dividends for you in the future. And we've seen it. We've seen Vanderbilt upset some teams because of it. We've seen Boise State come close against Oregon. So it's becoming more and more important for these coaches to have some sort of motivating factor about them. And Dan Lanning kind of has that with Oregon. But when it's not just because of coachability or a player trying to get developed to go to the NFL because they're not hungry because they're making $1 million, I think that that's something we have to kind of factor in moving forward.
I mean, yeah, I for sure I totally get that and where you're coming from on that, but for every 5-star that is not coachable and doesn't work out, there's 4 or 5 stars that did work out, right? So I don't think the outlier is, I don't think Georgia is getting, you know, whatever they I don't know how many 5-stars they got on the roster right now. Say Georgia's got 35 stars on their roster. There's a 0% chance that all 30 of them aren't going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you go get 1 or 2 5-stars and you got 1 or 2 5-stars on their team, yeah, there's a chance those 2 might not work out. But if you got 30 of them, 15 of them are going to work out and they're going to the NFL. The stats are what they are. We know what this looks like because we have years of data and analytics, to back this up. If Nick Saban was walking out there with, a bunch of 3-stars, he's not beating Georgia. That's not happening. Maybe once out of 10 times, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's not happening. And that's my point. Like, it's not the conference. It has nothing to do with the conference. If the Big 12 was going and getting 90% of the 5-star and 4-star players or whatever the figure you want to put in there, if they're getting 70% of the best players in the country, guess what? The Big 12 is going to be the best conference in the country within the next 2 years. That's going to happen. That's how this works. It's talent acquisition, and it's an arms race. College football has been an arms race for a long time now, and Alabama has won that arms race for a while. Georgia has been in the running to win that arms race for a while. It takes, and that's the thing, you can't just catch up with these teams in 1 year as far as recruiting goes. That's the hardest part about this. Even with the transfer portal, you have to go and recruit in the top 5 for 3 years straight. And so that's what makes this sport so difficult and why it's so many coaches get fired and things like that, because it takes time to build something really special, because you have to acquire talent like a little anthill, one little speck of dirt at a time. And it takes time. Anyway, Brian says, as per my original argument, look at the SEC this season. The record of each team looks identical to the Pac-12 conference teams. Brian, dude.
They're playing each other, dude.
They're playing each other. Pac-12 teams aren't playing SEC teams, brother. Come on, man. Come on, man.
They're 13-6 against other conferences, and no other conference is above 500. So I think you're onto something. It's a down year for the SEC, but that's not a bias. That's the fact. They're the only conference with a winning record against other conferences. So
Brian knows what I'm talking about. Come on, man. That's an Uncle Lou thing too. Come on, man. SEC is not dominant this year, Brian. That's yet to be decided, sir. We're actually just now about to figure that out.
That's what I'm saying. They're 13-6 against other Power 4 conferences, and nobody else is.
Y'all hear that?
Even
SEC 13-6 out of conference this year,
and just the Power 4. That doesn't include the cupcakes that they schedule and all. So
we'll see, Brian. Let's see who is dominant in the college football playoff. We're going to have a 12-team race, and we'll see who does what. And I know you're going to be here, so we'll talk about it. And if I'm wrong, I will flat out come on here and tell you I'm wrong. But I'd be willing to bet that it's going to be an SEC or Big Ten team in the national championship. How much do you want to bet?
Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving. We got 3 more to do, I guess.
Let's just run through these really quick because talked about these teams ad nauseum at this point. Oh, that's not the one we're supposed to do. Sorry, guys, not Big 12. Hey, y'all do me a favor. Hit that like button real quick for me. I appreciate it. Y'all have been awesome. I've been trying to pay attention to y'all in the comment section. There we go. SEC Championship coming at you. The Georgia Bulldogs are facing off for the second time this season against the Texas Longhorns. This time it's going down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going down on Saturday at 4 p.m. It's the SEC Championship, Mason. Texas's first year in the SEC, and here they are playing for the chip. We've already seen this matchup once. Georgia went on the road to Texas. Everybody remembers that matchup, one of the most anticipated matchups of the 2024 season. And Georgia decided to go to Austin and show out. The defense absolutely throttled Texas in the first half, and Texas was unable to make a comeback in the second half of that football game, and Georgia wins 30-15. And as we kind of fast forward here to the SEC Championship, Texas has been undefeated since, and undefeated otherwise. Look, it hasn't been the toughest schedule in the world for SEC for Texas, and their first year in the SEC, they kind of pulled a nice little card there. I mean, it wasn't anything Texas did or anybody trying to do Texas a favor, but it just kind of worked out that way. Playing some of the bottom of the barrel SEC teams, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, right? Vanderbilt ended up just being like a 500 team this year. Florida ended up being a 7-5 team this year. Arkansas 500 team. Kentucky below 500. Texas A&M ended up with 4 losses this season. I do believe it was 4. Yeah, and then Michigan, that was supposed to be a big game, but Michigan's team completely fell apart after last year. So nobody really, at the moment, everybody kind of watched that Michigan victory where Texas went on the road. And going on the road to the big house and winning is a big deal. And Texas, deserves some kudos for that. But Michigan isn't necessarily like a really awesome football team or anything like that. So able to win that one 31-12. This Texas team has got a different identity than the one that we saw last year, Mason. It's a defensive-led football team. Y'all see on the screen opponents' points per game, second in the country this year at 11.67. Yards allowed, third in the country, 247.5. That's unbelievable. 250 yards per game allowed. That's just absolutely outstanding. I feel like the defensive line has gotten a little bit better as the season has went on. I thought I saw some really good things out of that D-line against Texas A&M, where this, let's just be real, this Texas defense was able to just absolutely hit the Python squeeze on the Aggies in that rivalry game at Kyle Field. So I thought that was extremely impressive to be able to go on the road and do that. It's a defensive-led football team, as I've said. The secondary is what's been so improved, though. Secondary just was okay last year. And you go in the transfer portal, you pick up Makuba. Taff has been a guy that was, I believe he was a walk-on at one point, if I'm not mistaken, but has just really kind of grown into his situation there over the years in Austin. And regardless, he's been a great story, and he's been a really good player. It's not just a great story. He's made big plays for this Longhorns team this year. So I think that Texas has got one of the best teams in the country, even though their schedule has not been difficult. And the one most difficult game on their schedule, they lost by more than 2 touchdowns. I still think that this is one of the best teams in the country. Georgia, on the other hand, Mason, we've talked about it ad nauseum. You see the G, wrong side here. You see the G on my chest. I'm a Georgia fan. We watch all college football games. Mason and I watch between 12 and 20 football games every Saturday. But Georgia's our team, and we root for our dogs. But it's been an inconsistent year for our dogs, Mason. It's been really, really up and down. A lot of people would say, and I think I would tend to agree, this isn't the best team that we've seen at Georgia over the last 5 or 6 years necessarily, but it is really good in different ways. And look, let's be real. Carson Beck, he went through a slump, and we rode his ass. All right, on this show, nationally, everybody rode his ass. Everybody was breathing down his neck, giving him a really hard time when he played bad. Well, it's time to give him his flowers when he plays good, Mason. He's got 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions over the last few games. He's on a hot streak right now. He's absolutely killing it. And he's making throws in those last few games that are like, okay, that's why everybody was talking about him going high in the NFL draft. The touchdowns are there this year. The yardage looks like he's going to surpass all of his numbers. For all intents and purposes, he should be over 4,000 yards passing by the end of the season. It's been a remarkable year for Carson, other than the fact that he went through that spell turning the ball over. His wide receivers haven't helped him. They've dropped the football a ton this year. Georgia's #1 in the country in drops. So it begs the question, which Georgia's going to show up? Is it the one that can pass on anybody and is a top 10 passing offense in the country, which Georgia is this season? Or is it going to be the team that we saw last week in the first half against Georgia Tech, that every time they got something going, somebody dropped a pass, somebody fumbled a football, somebody did something boneheaded? That's been the identity for this Georgia offense about 50% of the time, unfortunately. And statistically, and looking at box scores and things like that, Georgia's offense has been really bad in first half of football games. They've gotten behind in a lot of games this year. Georgia cannot afford to do that here in this game, because Texas brings a little something to the table that I feel like they've polished and worked on ever since that Georgia game, and that's the run game. Wisner he's got to be one of the most improved players for Texas this season. He's got to be. He has really, really helped Texas be able to run the football over the last few games. I mean, heck, Texas, this was a team that we talked about coming out of the offseason saying they've got serious injuries in the running back room. Don't know what they're going to do at that position. Maybe they can convert a linebacker over. Maybe they can. No, they figured it out. That's what they did. And kudos to Steve Sarkisian for being able to do that. And kudos to Wisner for, figuring it out, getting to work. And he's been a pleasant surprise. Georgia defensively has kind of hit a lull the last couple of games, Mason, and I'm going to put some of the stats on the screen for you guys. Excuse me. This is Georgia's offense versus Texas's defense, and look, the stats. You can reference them all you want to. Here's the kind of the adverse of that is Georgia defense versus Texas offense. I'll kind of just flip back and forth between these. Texas's defense, all the stats are amazing, right? They are just all amazing. I mean, there's really not even much to look at. They're first, second, 10th, whatever. They're like top 10 in everything. So there's not much to compare there. But they haven't played the best offenses this year, Mason. I mean, they haven't played the best passing offenses for sure. So you can throw some of that stuff out the window. We all remember what happened in the Georgia-Texas game. Georgia was the beneficiary of some turnovers and some short fields. Texas was too. Georgia's offense was able to convert those into points. Texas's wasn't, and that was really the story in that football game, through and through. Georgia's got to figure out a way to be able to run the football here a little bit. Georgia's got to be able to run the ball for at least 100 to 125 yards in this game. I don't think Georgia's the same as some other teams where you've got to run it for 150 yards. But Georgia's got to have some kind of change up in this game. Got to be able to run the football a little bit. I think that Georgia can do that, but here lately when they've tried to do it, they've fumbled the football a lot. And Nate Frazier has been the guy that's done that. It seems to me teams have really pinpointed that whenever number 3 gets the ball, we're going for the strip. That's what it seems like to me. Nate is a young guy, a freshman, and he's still learning. He's still making some freshman mistakes, and it's going to be paramount in this game that the Georgia running backs are able to hold on to the football. If Georgia was ever able to play a clean football game where they don't get turnovers, I don't know that there's anybody in the country that can beat them in a game. But we haven't seen that. Georgia turns the ball over every single game. What do you think about this matchup, Mason? We've already seen it once this year. There's the old adage, it's hard to beat the same team twice. I don't know how true that is. What are your thoughts going into this one? And then we'll give our predictions here.
Well, I went back and rewatched this game, and the first time it was played, and one of the things that I noticed, one of my takeaways was that these offenses are not going to struggle like they did in that game. I just don't see it. You're not going to see as many turnovers. I think that some of the drop passes gets cleaned up a little bit. So, going through and watching exactly what the game plan was, if Carson was making the right reads. A lot of times I feel like Carson in this game was making the right reads, but not making a good throw. On the flip side, when I go back and watch Quinn Quentin Ewers wasn't making the right reads. He was missing guys that were open on top of that. In particular, they had the double reverse, and then he went over the middle to Wisner and just missed him. And Wisner would have been gone for 40 yards, extended the drive, and Quinn just absolutely missed him. There were another couple of cases where he had a guy open, and he decides to tuck it and run. It's not clicking there. So to me, if I'm looking at the two quarterbacks, which there's going to be a lot made out of these two quarterbacks because both of them are at least projected to go into the draft this year. This game is going to be huge for their draft stock, make no doubt about it. But looking at both of these quarterbacks, I really like the way Carson Beck is playing right now. In the past 3 games, he's had 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And after the Georgia Tech game, Carson Beck now leads the SEC in touchdown throws at 28. Now he's got 12 interceptions. Only one has come in the past 4 games, and that was one tipped ball that Ole Miss was able to get in that absolute beatdown that Georgia got. But my point is, Carson Beck is playing really good football right now. I've got Carson ahead of Quinn Ewers as far as how he's playing at this moment. Even some of the drives that have been stalled weren't Carson's fault. And I know I'm a Georgia fan. I know this sounds like Homer talk, but I'm able to spend a little bit more time watching Georgia because I'm a fan of them, I guess. But when you watch Georgia and you watch Carson Beck, a lot of the drives that were stalled were because of drops. So to me, it comes down to the wide receivers. And I'm going to get into breaking down both of these wide receiving groups here in a minute because I think that both of them have a lot to work on. Looking at Georgia, you've got some guys that are getting open but not catching the football. You see some players, in particular number 5, Lovett, who seems to be scared to catch the football going over the middle. I've never seen a slot receiver have a ball that he can catch and just kind of put his hands up but not really want to catch it. So that's an issue. Dylan Bell has dropped balls, which I thought he was the most sure-handed receiver on this team. Arian Smith continues to drop balls. London Humphreys continues to drop balls. The tight ends have been good. I think that they have been coming on as of late. But if Georgia's receivers can clean up the drop passes, I think that they win this game. If their drop passes are at like 1 or 2 in this game, then I think Georgia wins. The issue for Georgia's offense is when Carson Beck misses and the receiver has no chance to catch the football, there's no chance. But then when you couple that on top of, the receivers dropping the football, it makes the offense look terrible. I mean, it really does, because on a third down, you're at 3rd and 8, and the receiver, Carson hits the receiver 12 yards down the field for a first down, and he drops it. It looks like, Carson had an incomplete pass, right? So for his stat line, it doesn't look good. It stalls the offense. It makes the offense look bad. Everybody knows by now that Georgia has had issues catching the football. If they clean that up, I think Georgia wins this football game. I really do think that it's that simple. That's not the only thing that needs to happen, obviously. And I'm also not saying that Georgia is going to clean things up, because they haven't done it all year. Right. It's pretty frustrating. And then on the flip side, looking at Texas's wide receivers just aren't getting open. Mark, this is a huge downgrade from last season, where it seemed like this Texas offense was very, very explosive, to where now Sarkisian, with a quarterback that's more experienced in his system, is having to play the screen game more than he has really ever. Maybe in the NFL he did it a lot with the Atlanta Falcons, who had a struggling offense, but now Sarkisian is having to play a lot of short dink and dunk sort of throws and scheme things up. That's why you're seeing a lot of double reverses, and he's trying to scheme guys open and take a lot of the pressure off of Quinn in that sense, so that these receivers can create some separation, because the receivers aren't doing it unless they're schemed open. And that, to me, is the issue here. Georgia can fix the drop passes. Will they? Probably not. But when Texas's receivers aren't getting open, and credit Georgia's defense, credit the defensive backs, because they absolutely seatbelted those guys for most of that game when you go back and watch it. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that again. But that's not something that's really fixable within a week. The guys aren't creating separation, and then when you've got guys open, Quinn Ewers is just missing them or not throwing it at all. Those are the struggles that I've seen from Texas's offense, and I don't know if they can overcome that. Now, Texas's defense is probably the best in the country right now. I think it's pretty safe to say, and really from an efficiency standpoint, they are the best defense in the country. I don't see them giving up a ton of plays or a ton of yards on the ground. I don't see a lot of running plays from Georgia in this football game. Trevor Etienne is probably going to be out. That he was a huge factor in the first game. But if that's the case, can Texas get some coverage sacks? Can they cover the wide receivers for Georgia well enough to allow the pressure to get to Carson Beck? To me, that's the recipe for Texas to win this football game. I think that they're very much capable. I think Colin Simmons is a stud. Anthony Hill he's been great all season, but he's really come on as a pass rusher the past few games. I think you see him eating a pretty good bit. The whole front seven for this defense is good. The back end of the defense is good. They're opportunistic, going after the football, forcing the quarterback to throw into tight coverage and things like that. I can't say enough about this Texas defense, other than the fact that Georgia, granted, they were given a lot of short field opportunities in the past game, but they hung 30 on them the last time. I think that you can see a similar level of success from a scoring standpoint from this Georgia offense, but I think the yards are going to be much harder to come by, and you're going to need a more clean game, obviously limiting the turnovers and things like that, because I don't think you're going to get 4 turnovers again on the flip side that Texas gave up in that first game. All in all, and then I guess I should just bring up Georgia's defense, and I'll be real quick because I know I've been long-winded. Georgia's defense seems to be slumping, but I saw the difference between Georgia versus Texas and Georgia in just about every other game. And schematically, Georgia's not, they were not bringing pressure against, like they were against Texas, against any other team. So I think that you will see a little bit of that sort of playbook from this Georgia defense. They're not going to be as successful. I get all that. But you'll see this Georgia defense play much better than they have the past couple of weeks. They're not giving up 42 points like they did against Georgia Tech. Granted, the overtime and whatnot ran that score up. But even 27 points, I guess, in regulation is what they gave up to Georgia Tech. You're not going to see that. I'm not saying Texas can't score 27, but you get what I'm saying. Texas's offense, I think, is a little bit better than Georgia Tech's. But anyways, I think you're going to see a really close game. I think you're going to see a clean game, which is much different than what we saw the first time around. I'll go ahead and give you my prediction, Mark. I've been battling with this. And one thing I did fail to mention is the potential of Arch Manning. I talked a lot about Quinn Ewers. Arch Manning got himself into the football game against Texas A&M. I think that was by design. I think that Steve Sarkisian wants Kirby Smart and the Georgia defense to be working on protect or defending Arch Manning in the RPO. But I also think that could be a very, very strong game plan for them in this football game. I think if you saw Arch Manning in 30% of the drives, I think that could be a good thing. And maybe it goes up as the game goes on if Quinn Ewers isn't going to be effective, if the receivers aren't going to get open downfield. It's not all on Quinn Ewers. Receivers got to get open. If they're not getting open, maybe we do see a little bit more RPO from the Texas offense. I don't want to ride the fence here. I think if we see Arch Manning in 30% of the plays, I think Texas wins the football game. I think if we see Quinn Ewers for all but a series or a few plays or something like that, I think Georgia wins the football game. It is going to be close. I think that this one will be played within a touchdown on one side or the other. But I like Georgia to win this one. I don't think I'm going to bet on it. But if I had to bet, considering I've got Georgia to win at a 2.5 point spread, I would take Georgia and the points here. Man, with the over under at 49.5, I kind of want to take the over. I think it is going to be a little bit higher score. And I think we get into a bit of a situation where both teams whoever's down feels pressed to score. And I could see this one getting up into the mid 50s or right around 60.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that I think this one ends up being like 27-24, whoever wins it. Uh, I think Georgia wins this football game. I don't think this was a fluke last time we saw this. It went down in Austin. Um, Georgia shows up for these big games, man, and I think we'll see the best that Georgia has to offer in this game. Georgia has played many a games in this stadium that they're about to play this game in, and Texas has played a few there, but Georgia has a comfortability, all right, and they're driving 2 hours down the road. There'll be Georgia fans and Texas fans there for sure, but as far as Arch Manning goes, I definitely think he gets in the game. Um, and if he does he run for have a little success running the football? Yeah, I think he probably could. We've seen Georgia get ran on over the last couple of weeks a lot, specifically Haynes King and Georgia Tech. I think you see Steve Sarkisian throwing in some type of wrinkle there. But I'm not scared of Arch Manning throwing the football at all right now. So if it comes down to a point where Arch Manning's got to come in and throw the football around, he'll probably throw a pick or two because this offense is way too complicated. I remember Quinn Ewers his first year in it, and he still has moments that leave me scratching my head. Don't get me wrong, but Steve Sarkisian doesn't like first year quarterbacks, and he's tried to get Arch in there and get him some experience this year, and I think they've done a good job doing that. But Arch, I think, could be an X factor in the run game. Georgia showed, every team has an issue covering running quarterbacks. I mean, pretty much every single team. Some are better than others. I think Kirby and them will obviously have a plan. But I think Quinn Ewers gives Texas the best chance to win in this game. But Texas has got to be able to run the football in this game. I think that's what they were getting ready for last week. They're going to have to be able to run the football because if you're relying on Quinn Ewers and these wide receivers to win their matchups all game long, I just don't think it's going to happen. You're going to have some type of change up here. So whoever runs the ball for more yards in this game, I think wins it. And I think Georgia's going to be able to run the football a little bit in this game. I think Georgia's going to figure out a way to do that. I think Carson Beck has shown a propensity to be able to run here lately. We've seen it a pretty good bit. And he is not a little fella. I mean, he can get out there and run pretty good. So we're going to see that as well. And that'll be kind of a change up for Texas and something that really wasn't part of the game plan a whole lot whenever Georgia faced off with Texas earlier this season. So give me the Dogs, man. If you're going to give me plus points in the Dogs in Atlanta, I'm taking the Dogs. And I just Kirby Smart has showed me his ability to be able to get his teams ready for these big games. And this ain't Alabama we're talking about here. This is Texas, and Georgia really, I think, kind of proved a point and probably left a little something in the minds of some of these Texas players. Certainly, that offensive line is probably still having nightmares about what Georgia brought to the game that day. So, going to need Georgia to show up with that same type of energy and that same type of ferocious defense that they did in Austin. But I think Georgia is able to get it done here. Give me the plus 2.5. I think it's a good game either way. And I think this over-under is probably going to be spot on. If I had to pick one, I'd say over, though, for sure. All right. PNW Adventure, what's up, man? I saw your comment earlier today come across my phone. It was on another video, and by the time I could get to you, it was lost in the shuffle, man. I'm sorry about that. I was trying to reply to you, but I cleared it off my screen, and then another one popped up, and another one popped up, another one popped. I came back to my phone a couple hours later, and I couldn't find it. So I'm sorry about that. But thanks for watching. PNW Adventurer says conference championships should only be used for playoff seeding. A loss should not kick you out of the playoffs if you're already top 12. Now, if you're out of top 12 and you win your CC conference championship, then you get in. Yeah, I agree with you in a sense. I mean, you can't count these against teams too much. I wouldn't want to kick somebody out of out of the playoffs because of it. That's for sure. Unless, of course, it's Clemson doesn't deserve to be in, but you kind of covered that in your take there. Georgia curb stomped and undefeated. Oh, that has to do with the argument that we're having here in the comment section. Y'all wouldn't understand what we're even talking about. You had to be there. Geography joke. Let's go to the ACC Championship. We got a couple to run through, Mason. We got to run through these really quick because I got to go. Thank y'all for watching. Hit that like button real quick. Help us out. We got one of the most important games of the weekend coming up right here, so let's talk about it. ACC Championship game going down in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium. This one's going down on Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the Clemson Tigers versus the SMU Mustangs. It's the Mustangs' first year in the ACC, Mason. They said, we don't need money. We don't need none of that stuff. Just let us in. Just let us in your conference, please. And very first year, Mason, they go undefeated in their conference. Obviously, their only loss coming to BYU earlier this season, which is not an ACC opponent. So, therefore, SMU undefeated in the ACC their very first season. Congratulations to the Mustangs. 1985 was a long, long time ago, but it seems like it's been about that long since SMU has been relevant, definitely to this extent in the college football world. Clemson, on the other hand, Mason, it hasn't been a Clemson fan's dream this regular season. 9-3, lost to Georgia, lost to South Carolina there, and lost one other game. I'm trying to – why is it blanking on me who it was? Anyway, Clemson has lost 3 games this season, only 2 of them there. Only 1 in the ACC. So it's been a I would say a run of the mill season for the Clemson Tigers, and that's how spoiled this program has been over the last few years, because 9 wins and going to the ACC Championship, that's just kind of run of the mill for this program, and it really goes to show you what Dabo Swinney has built up there over the last couple of decades, or decade and a half, or decade, or whatever, however you want to put that, however long he's been there. It's been a while now. SMU has got a hell of an offense, Mason. I'm super impressed with Jennings. Jennings has just done an incredible job at the quarterback position for SMU, and he really is the heart and soul of this offense. He as he goes, this team goes, specifically how the offense goes. They're going to score points. The over-under is set pretty high on this one. What was it set at? I think I forgot to mention that at the top of the show. 56.5 is what we had the other day. SMU is favored by 2.5 in this one. So obviously, Vegas anticipating a high-scoring game. It really sucks that RJ Maryland isn't going to be able to be in this game, right? He went down earlier in the season with an injury, and that definitely kind of puts a little bit of a damper on things for SMU, but the show must go on. Everybody's dealing with injuries at this point. It's next man up, and that's big boy college football, and that's what SMU is a part of at this point. So next man up, please. And SMU has done just fine ever since he's went down, but a big game like this, a microscope will be on it. Clemson has been much better offensively, I think, this season versus where they were in 2023. Cade Klubnik has really kind of he's come on. He's gotten better. Are there some things that he leaves to be desired? I think so, a little bit. But we've seen progress. He's not just somebody who's flatlined, since he's been at Clemson, like a DJU or something like that, where it's just like, all right, we're not seeing any progress. Cade Klubnik's done a lot better protecting the football this year and knowing where he wants to go with the football, down in and down out, to best benefit the team. And it showed statistically. It showed on the field for Clemson. I feel like it was a better season, a more consistent season this year than what we saw last year. The wide receivers, I still feel like leave a little bit to be desired. Bryant Wesco has been a breath of fresh air this year. It's been kind of a rebuilt wide receiver room for Clemson and a bit of an experiment. There's been times where I feel like it's been better, and there's been times where I feel like it's you still got some questions. Number 0 there on the offense, he certainly has left his print on this offense throughout the season. and expect him to be able to be of X factor in this game at the wide receiver position as well. How healthy is Phil Maffa? This Clemson offense is really not anything if they can't run the football, Mason. We know Cade can jump out of the pocket and run it. We know that. But we need somebody, a battering ram such as Phil Maffa, to be able to turn around, hand that ball to him, and watch him work. He's a really, really good running back, very, very physical. How physical is he able to be in this game? He's been dealing with some injury, right? Like a lot of running backs are at this point in the season. SMU has been good at stopping the run, and so that's what concerns me with Maffa, right? If he's not able to go at 100%, which I doubt he will be 100%, you're hoping for maybe 90 or 95, right? But 95.91 rushing yards per game allowed by this SMU defense so far this season. That's really, really solid and top 10 in the country there. So you see what Clemson has produced offensively, 195.27 yards per game rushing the football. Got to figure out a way, I think, to get to 200 yards to be able to win this game, I think. Because you got to be able to dominate the time of possession, things like that. Play some keep away from this SMU offense that's been so potent, like we talked about. What are your thoughts here, Mason? SMU has been subject to giving up some passing yards. 236.09 is their average per game this season. That's not good. Clemson has averaged 274.6 offensively. So I would think that this would probably give the nod to Clemson probably going over 300 yards passing in this game. And therefore, like I said, I think it all depends on SMU's rush defense versus that Clemson rush offense. And I really think that has a lot to do with painting a picture on who's the winner in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at SMU and their game plan, I don't know that you have to really study the film a whole bunch, because we just saw that the blueprint to beat Clemson is with a good running quarterback, and that's what Kevin Jennings is. Now, surprisingly, when you look at the efficiency rating or ranking, whatever you want to call it, Cade Klubnik is actually a better runner this year than Kevin Jennings, which is kind of surprising for fans who aren't as plugged in. But make no doubt about it, I think that Kevin Jennings needs to give his best Lenore Sellers impression, and the SMU is going to have a real chance at winning this football game, which is not easy to do. I get it. Lenore Sellers looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. I totally get that. You're asking a lot from Kevin Jennings, but I think he's capable. We've seen it throughout this season, and albeit it was against lesser talent, this is the only the second top 25 team, at least by the college football playoffs current rankings. This is only the second top 25 team that SMU has played, and they lost to BYU earlier in the year. So can they play up, and can they continue their dominance as they play up against a tougher team? We'll have to wait and see. But I think the blueprint is there. Having a running quarterback gives them the upper hand, and also having Brashard Smith, who probably doesn't get enough attention. I think if he can kind of do his Rocket Sanders impression, then SMU's their offense should succeed in this game. I like their rushing attack on offense, and then Kevin Jennings kind of plays a little bit of YOLO ball. I'll be honest, he kind of gets away with some balls, and his players or his receivers make plays. Brashard Smith is actually an excellent running back coming out of the backfield as well. But I think that that's the blueprint on offense for SMU to win this football game, and I think that they can do it, especially if Clemson has to kind of reach into their bag and pull out some second stringers or maybe even a third stringer. This Clemson defense gets noticeably worse as they go beyond the starters. And so if they have to reach into that bag at all, I think that SMU is going to exploit that. On the defensive side for SMU, I really like their front four. Elijah Roberts is an absolute problem on the D line, and really him, all four of the guys, at least against the competition that they've faced so far, they've been a problem, and they really do a great job of kind of bull rushing. They're not that kind of finesse pass rush sort of front four, but a power rushing front four is really tough to stop. And going up against this Clemson offensive line that is probably better in a sense of where Clemson has been in recent years. But I don't think that they're like some great offensive line. They're not known as being some great offensive line, although they did hold South Carolina to just 1 sack. That was actually pretty impressive. So on the flip side, can South Carolina on offense block that front four? If they play like they did against South Carolina, I like their chances. But even in a down year for Clemson, this is going to be the best defense that SMU has faced this season by a lot. Yeah. As long as, like I said, as long as they can keep the starters in there, that's going to be key. So how does this SMU offense respond to the adversity of playing a tough team in Clemson in what is essentially a home game for them in Charlotte, North Carolina? They pretty much own that stadium. I mean, they don't lose very often in the ACC Championship Game, and obviously Dabo's got the experience there. Some of these players have a little bit more experience in these football games. I'm starting to come around to the idea that Clemson could potentially pull off the upset here and win this game. To me, it comes down to the experience factor and the fact that SMU hasn't seen a team like Clemson all season long. This isn't 2018 Clemson. I get that, but there is still a gap to me between the teams that SMU has faced throughout the season and Clemson. And I like what Cade's been able to do with his legs here as of late. I think you see a little bit more design run and whatnot. But for me, I'm starting to come around on the idea that Clemson could actually win this football game. I was all SMU up here and up until recently, and now I'm starting to feel call it a vibe, call it a gut feeling, but I'm starting to feel like Clemson is going to be able to establish the lines of scrimmage here, and do a good enough job blocking SMU's front four. And on the flip side, that they got some absolute studs on defense, and I don't think that offensive line for SMU is going to be able to contain, TJ Parker, Peter Woods, and some of those guys on that defensive front. I think that those guys are going to eat in this one. And then let's not even get into the playoff talk at that point as far as what happens. We'll keep that for another show. I got Clemson in this one. I think it is going to be a close game, but I see Dabo Swinney holding his hands up at the end of this football game in a thriller. Give me Clemson by 3. I think the game goes under as well.
I would think that it would probably need to go under, right? If Clemson is wanting to win this thing, I feel like you would. As a Clemson fan, you're probably rooting for a lower scoring game that Clemson can kind of stay in control of. Because if this thing kind of gets out of control and SMU is scoring, in the 30s or 40s, I'm not sure that Clemson's able to keep up. So I think it makes total sense. Dabo has got this team right where they want to be. He's got a motivating edge on them. They just lost at home to their rival, and here they find themselves in a play-in to a chance for a national championship. That's what he's preaching to his kids, right? And I'm sure that they're believing it. They've got a chance to prove everybody wrong right here. They've got the athletes to do it. Mason, we've talked about this Clemson defense a lot this year, and they've got NFL players on it. They haven't played as a unit that great all year, game in and game out. We've seen glimpses where they have. We've seen glimpses where they've given up 30 over, several times this season. Now, some of that was whenever backups came in and trying to get guys, some playing time and things like that, young fellas. I don't know if you see the young fellas in this game, right? This isn't a situation where Clemson's going to be trying to get playing time. They're going for the dub here. They're going for the jugular. So it's a hard one to call, man. I'm going to stick with SMU just because that's where we've been. the whole time, and I'm just gonna stick with it. You make compelling arguments for Clemson in this one, and SMU has not played anything similar to Clemson's defense all year. You're 100% correct on that. So this could be a bit of shell shock for SMU. Not to mention SMU, a lot of their success. I mean, they've had a lot of big games at home this year. This isn't going to be at home. Kind of like the Georgia Texas situation. You've got Clemson going to a place in Charlotte that they're super familiar with. All the coaching staff. I mean, all these guys. A lot of them know what to expect when they get there and things like that. That stuff's underrated. Being able to get prepared for something like that. Dabo Swinney has got the check mark on his side for that one. So I'm going SMU. I really don't want the -2.5. I'd probably, just do SMU on the money line maybe if you're wanting to pick SMU. I don't know about those 2.5 there, trying to cover that. This one could come down to somebody missing an extra point or going for 2 or something like that. So I wouldn't even try to worry about that 2.5. Just pick one of these teams on the money line if you're going to bet it. Over under, if you think SMU is going to win, I'd pick the over. If you think Clemson's going to win, I'd pick the under here. Your guess is as good as mine on that one. We'll see you later on this week for the betting show here on First and Long College Football Show. Best of luck to your teams in Conference Championship Week. A lot riding on that game, guys. Man, there's a lot riding on that game. It's pretty wild. I can't go read every single one of y'all's comments because y'all are deep in a conversation in the comment section here. So
I
just wanted to
stop looking at them, and all of a sudden there was like 63.
Yeah, DeFrogger, what's up, man? DeFragger, is that Fragger? Which would make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, dude? How's it going, man? Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Brian Browning, don't let him beat you down, brother. Hang in there.
Just fight the good fight, man.
Brian is fighting the good fight. Boise team, look, this is one of his comments. This Boise team is better than the 2011 Boise team that beat Georgia. Oh, Lord have mercy. Brian. It probably is. You're probably right. So I'm not going to even go there. Georgia sucked. So whatever. Joe Long, what's up, dude? I like that. Go Long, Joe Long. Joe Long says Notre Dame either this year or next. Mark it down. Good morning, Gio. What's up, Gio? How you doing, buddy? Just kind of giving you guys a shout out. Thanks for hanging out with us and coming in commenting. There was one other comment, Mason, and I'm trying to get back to it. It was Evan the reporter, I believe. Let's see if I can find it. There's Bobby D. Don't sleep on Boise State. That team is a dream wrecker. How do we get all these Boise State fans in here? I'm glad to have you guys, but where the heck are y'all guys coming from? What's up, Bobby D? Oh, shit, Mason. Sorry, I clicked on this other one. Evan the reporter says, breaking news. Woo. Breaking news. Rich Rodriguez has agreed in principle to return to West Virginia. I can't find that. I can't find an article online right this second, just at the tip of my fingers on this. Now,
I just love that his name's Evan the reporter, and he just comes in out of nowhere and drops some breaking news. Never seen this guy on the channel. He just goes around to different channels and drops bombs and then walks out. Very interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. Like, where the hell did you come from? We appreciate it. I appreciate the news fairy coming and dropping a little fairy dust on us here in the comment section. If you guys don't know, Rich Rodriguez obviously was, I guess, the most successful West Virginia coach ever, I guess you would say. Had a run there in the 2000s that was super impressive. Saw West Virginia one game away from a national championship appearance there right before he left, and ended up leaving. Kind of a weird split there. Didn't coach the bowl game that season after they had lost the backyard brawl there. And I guess kind of violated his contract. It was kind of a bad thing. It was in litigation for a while. He went to Michigan, didn't do well there, went to Arizona, was OC at Ole Miss. He's been around, and Rich Rod is Has time passed him by? I don't know. I guess we'll see, huh?
I did
But
see an article saying that somebody at West Virginia was interested in him, and that this was
he's on the
yesterday.
short list.
So, but I just thought it was funny that Evan Reporter. That's just such a funny name. Like that seems like a Family Guy character for me. I don't know why. Whenever I see Evan the Reporter, it's like, oh, that's a guy on Family Guy who just came in here and broke some news and then he's gone. You know, it's like a flashback or something. I don't know. That was pretty funny to me.
We got a full-on kerfuffle going on in the comment section. Let's finish up this show before somebody gets mad for real. It's the Big 12 championship, Mason. Iowa State makes an appearance. It's their first 10-win season in school history. Arizona State is setting their own history and their own bar at their program. 10-2 this season for the Sun Devils. Kenny Dillingham in his second season has really just been a world of difference for the Sun Devils. Totally turned that program around. Look, I'm going to put some of the stats on the screen here, and you guys can kind of pick through it as you will. Y'all let me know in the comment section, what do you think's going down in this football game? I'll be quite frank with you, Mason. I feel like Arizona State's got an edge here in this game. I really like Arizona State's ability to be able to make Iowa State one-dimensional. I like Arizona State's run defense is what I'm referencing there. Iowa State likes to throw the football. They're good at throwing the football. Got a nice wide receiver quarterback combo there that's worked out really nicely this season. But if Arizona State can take away the run and take away the complementary approach from Iowa State's offense, I think that's going to set Arizona State up really nicely in this game. Cam Scatterbo, running back for Arizona State, has been an absolute thrill to watch so far in his career. I was on the Scatterbo train last year, but he's been really fun to watch this season. And just like Arizona State likes to be able to stop the run, they love to be able to run the football offensively. So they're a run-first team on both sides of the football. That is their concentration. Is Arizona State able to hit a pass or two to be able to back this defense up? That'll be the biggest question, I think, in this game for Arizona State offensively. Are they able to hit an explosive play, back guys off the line of scrimmage, and let Cam Scatterbo work? Personally, I think Iowa State is probably going to dare Arizona State to throw the football. So I think Arizona State is going to have some situations where they have a wide receiver or two out on an island in some man coverage and things like that. And I think Arizona State's going to have to hit one or two of those to back the Cyclones off of that line of scrimmage and let them be able to, run their program offensively. It's been an outstanding season for both teams. And obviously this is for a playoff bid. Mason, what do you think about this one? I didn't even talk about what who was favored and what the line was in this one. Let's see. I've got it right here. Yep, there you go on your screen. Arizona State is a 2-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 50.5 for this one. What do you think, Mason?
Well, the number's moving down, which is kind of interesting. It was at 2.5 when we did this first early preview on Sunday. So the number's coming down, kind of going towards Iowa State here just a bit. But to me, look, and I went through and watched some games of both teams, kind of getting ready, getting prepared for this breakdown. I'm looking for different stats to grab and angles and all this stuff. And the only thing I was able to write down was, can you stop Cam Scatterbo? Like that to me is the biggest question. You've got a really good rushing attack by Arizona State versus Iowa State, who's been pretty bad against the run on defense. And then you've got Iowa State, who's been really good at passing the football, and Arizona State, who's been pretty bad in their passing defense. So you've got good on bad and good on bad. Who's going to win here? So I'm giving the edge to Cam Scatterbo because he's been head and shoulders, above most running backs in college football, not named Ashton Genty, and he was hurt for a good portion of the year, or his stats would look a lot better. But here, watching him run as of late, he just runs with a vengeance. He is very tough to get down. I think I really, and I don't mean to make make light of this this breakdown or this preview, but it's really going to come down to, can Iowa State stop Cam Scatterbo? Because that is the offensive game plan for Arizona State. Everybody knows it going in. What all you need to know is he going to run right, or is he going to run left and stop him? Like I don't know if Iowa State is gonna have a game plan for that. I mean, you would think going into this one that the defensive coordinator for Iowa State is going to be able to just say, hey, we are not going to let Cam Scatterbo beat us, but he does it. Teams have been saying that all year, and he's continued to do it. So to me, I'm looking at Arizona State. I'm thinking that Cam Scatterbo is going to be able to do it. I think he's just a tough guy to get down, and so I'm going with Arizona State in this one. I'm not gonna think twice about it. I like the Sun Devils. I really like what Kenny Dillingham has done all season long, but here as of late, even they've been the hot team. And that's what I want to see going into conference championships and going into playoffs, is who's hot late, not just who's been doing it all season, but who's hot late. Right now, to me, the hot hand is Arizona State in the Big 12. I think it is going to be a sloppy game, though. I think there will be some turnovers, and who's going to make more mistakes, right? I guess that's another way to look at it. But I like Scatterbo for about 150 plus yards on the ground this week. I think he's gonna do really well.
Yeah, he's so fun to watch, guys, and everybody will get eyes on him this weekend. Not everybody dedicates a TV or a screen over to Arizona State every weekend, but you're going to get a good chance to get your eyes on them this weekend as they face off against the Iowa State Cyclones there. We'll see, Mason. I like Arizona State here, and I like Arizona State actually by like a touchdown here. I think this is one of the ones that I'm more confident in. Give me the Sun Devils. They've played better as the season has went on, and I thought they played some of their best ball last week on the road at Arizona. They played dominant football, and so I think this team is hot. Give me the Sun Devils -2. I think they cover that. And as far as the over under goes, I would lean. I'm leaning over on that one. I think the over is going to hit there, but these over unders are so tough this week. It's going to really be tough to say. I think the defenses do show up in these conference championship games, and so you could see some surprising unders in this one. So buyer beware on that one. All right, guys, that's it for us tonight. That's all the conference championships. Listen, if y'all didn't see it, I just posted in the comment section. We are 3 subscribers away from 1,600. So if y'all could, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button for me real quick. I can't say the word subscribe typically. I try to.
You just need to get rid of the B and just subscribe.
Subscribe.
It's
Man,
just easier.
Put y'all hit that subscribe button. Show. But for real, please help us out. It's been a great week. We've had so much fun conversating with you guys. I can tell everybody's really excited for this 12-team playoff, and I'm super excited for y'all, all the fan bases of all those teams. I'm really excited for you guys. I'm obviously excited for myself as well. It's gonna be one hell of a next 6 weeks, and we're gonna meet here about 3 times a week over the next 6 weeks. So I invite all you guys to come and hang out with us again. We get a little heated in the comment section every once in a while, but we have a lot of fun, and we got some pretty smart college football fans in here and people from all 4 corners of the United States. So you get all aspects and all views on all this stuff, and that's why we started this channel. We're building a nice little community here, and I've really started to enjoy it even more over the last few weeks. Guys, this is it. Good luck in conference championships this week. I guess we are going to have a betting show later this week, Mason. Are we going to get on and do that? It'll be our last. I guess it'll be kind of our last one. We'll come join us Thursday for the betting show. We'll kind of discuss what we're going to do the rest of the season. That'll give me and Mason a chance to kind of iron out some details on that. But I'm well over 500 this year on my bets, guys. So if you want to come make some money here at the end of the year, come make some money with me. I'm still betting with money that I made 2 years ago. So I haven't went below 500 in years, literally, on these college football bets. So come and join me. I'd love to give you some of my best bets, and hopefully you win some money with it. That's it for us, guys. Everybody have a great night. I'm signing out for the First and Long College Football Show. I'm Marcus. That's Mason, and we'll see you next time.